Now today promises to be another unusual day. We've had a few unusual days lately. It's snowing outside. We woke up and it's snowing pretty good, and it's supposed to snow all day. Now usually what that means is we plan a day around working inside, drinking a lot of coffee, but of course we're restricted. We really can't paint today. Now because I can't paint today, I decided today would be a good day to do some work with carbon fiber, and I have a couple little things that I'm thinking about doing, all of which can be done without going outside, which is really nice. Now I made these parts up, of course, many years ago. These are the heel guards for the R1. They're solid carbon fiber, and made the mufflers up, again, solid carbon fiber. Got all this material from Dave Midgley and Dick Hewitt. And I want to make a similar set, well, not going to be exactly the same, a similar set for the project we're working on now. And I usually make a piece. Now I've made the tail section, the tail, what do you call the tail tidy for the R1. I made that from scratch. And I also made this piece that goes under the license plate, keeps the license plate from vibrating. Well, we have some scrap carbon fiber material, but I want to make some new stuff. Now the original heel guards for the 650, I took them off, polished them, and they look nice, but I think that'll look a lot nicer if it's some really high gloss carbon fiber. We have the nose piece carbon fiber. In fact, it's already buffed out. I could come and do a little test fitting. I wanted to test fit everything before I took this front piece of the fairing off. But for today, that'll be a great little project to start. And I'll try to go through it step by step. It's going to take a few days, but we can combine it with, we still have things to buff. And we have plenty of things because of leapfrogging. We always have something, no matter what the weather is. So what I have is I have a license plate piece of carbon fiber that I made years ago, and I have the piece that's left over from doing the side pieces for the 650 project. So what I thought I'd do, I'll take the original pieces off and just see if I can, maybe I want to change the shape, maybe I want to keep the shape. I'm not sure. Got to make a decision here. These pieces come right off. So with the part off, I want to change the shape just a little bit. I'm not sure how, but I'm going to make a little cardboard pattern up of what I think the shape might be. I want to eliminate this little tang. It kind of didn't look the way I wanted it to. I have no idea how long it's going to snow or how this day is going to play out, but any day it's like this, it's really not practical to set up to do any painting. My sacred painting bench, covered in ice, but we'll be downstairs where the coffee is warm. And when it snows, the birds are always hungry. Oh, who knows how much snow we're going to get today. Now, if I lay up this piece of carbon fiber, the nice thing, and we know that a couple days later you can buff it out to look like that. But the problem is, and it's a problem that these heel pads, heel guards, whatever you want to call them, they do take a beating. So what I'm going to try to do is something, I'll use this part as an experiment, because what I want to try to do is buff out the resin like I did on the R1 parts. Now that was different resin. I don't know if the West with that hardener is going to buff out quite as shiny, but I'm not going to know until I give it a try. So this will kind of be an experiment within an experiment. So what I wanted to do is make basically an oversized template. Let's see how I can do this realistically. Because what I wanted to do, I wanted to set, and of course I can use this for a pattern. I can use this part I want to use, and this was my vision anyway, and then to extend this up just a little bit where we have this piece. Now, I'm not sure if I can do this what I want. What I'll do is I'll take the pattern outside and see if I like it, and if I don't, very easy. That's why it's good to make a pattern before you make a part. Then I can lay up enough carbon fiber, and actually I can lay it up today. Let's try to mimic that part a little bit. And if we have that, we can always cut some holes in it if we want to make it look like it's just a little bit bigger. Okay, and then I can always go back, see, by making a pattern. Every time I look at that side view, that when we worked off the pictures, I was not crazy about. This part just didn't look right for some reason. All right, so I'm going to cut this out, and I'm going to take it out to the garage and see if I like it. Now this is basically the stock part, and what I was hoping I'd get is a little bit bringing it up a little bit. Let's see if that will do it. Yeah, I guess so. I guess we're close here. You never know if you're close until you make a pattern. Yeah, that looks like it'll be in keeping with the motorcycle. All right, so I obviously for the other side I have to reverse this. I'll check the other side that there's nothing interfering, and maybe I will put this little tab on, just for laughs, just to see how I like it. Anyway, this was productive, and now I can go fine tune this. I know I'm going to be happy with the final product. I'll make a final pattern for this, and we'll be ready to lay up some carbon fiber. Now, after playing around with the original pattern, I wanted to change that angle so it's more in keeping with the frame rail that's there. I want to extend this up just a little bit, just to make it look a little bit different than the stock part. Which now these parts really take a beating from the heel of your boot. So again, this will be a great experiment to see if when I do put the final finish, there'll be no paint at all on this. It'll be all resin, and so I'm going to have to change the way I want to make the part just a little bit. And I think leaving that little tab on will just add a little bit of, I don't know what, let's a little cuter. I'm not sure I want to put those holes in, but of course I can always grind holes in with the Dremel tool if I decide I want that. So we're ready to start, well, cut that out. I'll do a final fit outside, and then we're ready to lay up some carbon fiber. So this is how this template evolved. I wound up doing several trips out to the garage to make sure I was going to be happy. And I finally came up with what I think is going to be the final template. A little bit different than stock. It'll have that little tab. And so I wasn't happy with that shape. Sometimes I really didn't like this one. This one just looked too much like the stock one. So now to create these pieces, I need to make a piece of carbon fiber with resin, and of course it's not a structural piece, but the biggest thing I want to have is I want to have a nice finish on one side. And so what I'm going to have to do is lay this out in such a way, and I know I don't have enough scrap. I know this is not going to work. I saved the scraps anyway. Not a chance on earth they don't fit. So I'm going to have to make a whole new piece. Not a big deal. We have a whole roll from Dave and Dick Hewitt. So when we clear the deck out, and we're going to have to make some material. And this is always the first part of any carbon fiber job. So I'm starting this off with an ordinary piece of glass. I put newspaper down on the workbench. I want to take a piece of the glass. I don't want to make any more material than I need to at this point in time. And we keep in mind the material is expensive. I want to make sure I get both pieces on here. Now this blue tape is just for my reference, just to make it easier to see what I'm doing. It's certainly not necessary. Now, we do have the choice. We could put down, and I was thinking maybe I'd do this, we could put down some PVA, and I don't know if I even have any more. I got to check if I have any more. And use that as a way of keeping the release, because we want to release the part. The other choice you have is you could break the glass, I guess. Not sure that's the way we want to do it. I don't think Boeing does that. Okay, so we have enough material here. This will be enough. This marks out how much we need in terms of carbon fiber, because again, I don't want to waste it. So what I need to do is make a piece. I need to cut 6 pieces this size from the big giant roll, and then I'll have the 6 pieces already cut and ready to go, and we'll be ready to, well, I got to decide what I want to do here. And if not, I'll just put ordinary saran wrap down. I'll talk about some good memories. I still have it. It's about a half a gallon. So I'll use this as a demo. Of course, we've already done the saran wrap thing. I wanted to clean this line off because it may wind up, I don't know, somehow contaminating it. I'd like to start with a nice clean piece of glass. And now the PVA, in a perfect world, the first thing you would do, and this is really kind of simple stuff, is wax this several times. If you make a mold, let's pretend this is a mold, you would put several coats of carnauba wax on it. And so that's the first thing we're going to do before we even put the PVA on. And in a perfect world, you'd set up a spray gun with PVA. Oh, we don't need it. We could brush it on for this amount. What I have to do is, the next time I talk to Dave Midgley, he's in the Teflon coatings business. So what I want, he can give me a sheet of Teflon and I wouldn't have to put any of this on, but right now this will get us through. This is ordinary. In the tub, it's even the same thing. I want to take a clean part of a microfiber. I just want to be sure I have a coat of wax on here. Of course, in a perfect world, if you were doing a complex mold, you'd want to wax it 6, 7, 8 times. Every time you do, it gets smoother and smoother. And I think on the model plane videos that several times we made cowlings and we made fuselages, and there's probably a lot of video of waxing the mold and prepping it, but you do want to have it as prepped as possible. So what we're going to do is, while the PVA is dry, and again, this is all part of leapfrogging and sequencing, and the whole deal is that you always want to have something drying if you're looking to work efficiently. And if you're not looking to work efficiently, so who cares? If your boss is paying for your time. See, that's the problem. My boss doesn't pay for my time. So I'll do 3 coats of wax on this. That's usually enough. And if Dave is watching this video, I could use some sheets of Teflon. That was something. He used to have some really good stuff we used to use, and the stuff would pop right off. But this will get us through the day. And since I'm not doing this to try to, to compete with Boeing or anything, it really won't matter. And the idea of the videos, of course, is to pass on information to the person who's looking to make his first or second. Like that guy that was making, he's on YouTube too, nice gentleman, and he's making parts for an office chair. I think there's things he could learn from the information we share, and we probably somewhere down the road, he'll come up with something that we can use. So, and he's a nice enough guy to share the information. Not everybody wants to share what they learn. Some people gloat over the fact that they know something you don't. Well, shame on them. That's all I can say. So here we are. Let's get this. I want to get this paper off of here. I want to get this right to the edge if I can. Now, I don't know, to be honest. I've never had PVA that's 10, 15 years old. Maybe it goes bad and I'll have to break the glass, but again, we're going to find out. And again, this is really old. I don't even know if it has a date on it. Doesn't really matter. I guess we're going to find out. But it's PVA, it's polyvinyl alcohol. Now, if we were going to do a lot of this, my feeling would probably be to, well, I would set up a spray gun, an old spray gun with it. And for right now, that might not be necessary. I think we're just going to put on one coat, one very thick coat, roll it on. That'll be certainly good enough. I'm not really, and this dries in about 10 or 15 minutes, maybe a little longer. Time for a coffee break anyway. And that polyvinyl alcohol, what in essence, hopefully it does, is keep the material from sticking. Now, polyvinyl alcohol is water soluble, so you really can just get rid of it. A little bit of soap probably wouldn't hurt. That takes about 15 minutes to dry. I wound up spreading it with a brush, a foam brush. Seemed like it was going to be okay. Since we're going to sand that part and buff it and polish it and everything, anytime you're going to sand and buff and polish, it's not really critical. What's critical is we want to be able to get the part off without breaking the glass. Those glasses, the pieces of glass we had when Karen was painting a different picture every 2 weeks, we take the glass, we buy these frames, almost wholesale, sometimes 10 at a time, and we take the glass and the mirrors out of them. Mirrors and glass work. By the way, never throw a mirror away if you're going to do any molding. You can basically use the mirrors and the glass over and over. Now, I want to always be careful with the carbon fiber. Again, it's expensive, and it's just pointless to waste anything, even coffee. So I want to take it off of the big roll, and I want to be very careful now. as when I do this, I've got to measure it relatively accurately. It's pretty easy to do it. Oh, I love carbon fiber. I love it. So what I'll do is I'll just take this and reverse it. Now I want to measure it. I need 6 layers, so I need 6 pieces the size that they'll both get cut from the same piece. They'll have the same weave. They'll have the same everything. What I'm doing here is I'm allowing an extra inch of material. The tape only helps keep it from unraveling. It's not a critical thing. You could do without the tape. In fact, it doesn't even matter. But that'll at least give me that much of a head start, hopefully. Getting this, I need 6 pieces. I want 6 laminations. That's what I used on the R1 parts, and they seem to have worked out perfectly. I made a lot of little parts you don't even see. I made parts that I've painted. There's parts on the R1, the seat, for instance. That back piece of the seat, I made 2 of them, and they just came out great. And carbon fiber, I find very nice to work with. Not everybody does, of course. There are some people that are challenged by it, but I think it's a good material to work with. I like it. And that doesn't mean that you will, but I don't know. Well, some people don't want to do anything, and that's okay too. Anyway, there's always that Kevlar string at the end that can be a pain. Okay, so I need to now do the 20-inch. These are 6 by 20. See, I want to minimize how many of those go flying off. And I can do this and then just put the tape on. This would be roughly here. And I know I won't get that. That'll be just a scrap piece, but that's okay. We can always use scrap. Scraps are always good. The thing is, I try to minimize the waste, but I try not to become a fanatic about it. Now, a couple of the things that are worth mentioning. If you buy carbon fiber off the internet, usually you can get used pieces or pieces that have 1 thread missing in them or whatever, relatively inexpensively. But if you want good quality stuff, obviously, you got to pay a little more. But here's the thing. Some of these people that sell carbon fiber, they fold it up in an envelope and send it to you. And then the weave on a twill weave, it's got a distortion in it. If you're looking to make cosmetic parts, probably better off buying it and making sure they ship it on a roll. All right, this is the resin system that we're going to use for this part. And so far, we've had extremely good luck with this. So it's a 3.7 to 1. I would say this with, with some caution. It's not super critical, but it's good if you can get it right at 3.7 to 1. I use the little mixing cups, or you could use a gram scale if you have a little scale. You can do it by weight, and you just read the directions on the back of the can. It's as simple as can be. Now, the advantage of this is super clear hardener. What that's going to mean is the final part is going to have a really nice clear look, as opposed to the other hardener that leaves it kind of an orangey look. I think the part we buffed yesterday, that speaks for itself. And now what's going to be interesting, see, that's paint. That's clear automotive paint. So it's Gavco clear, in fact. What we're going to find out now is if we can, at some point in time, polish that resin up to look like that, because that heel part has to be a little more durable. I'm afraid if you kick that with your heel, the paint wouldn't be as durable as the, what do you call it? Why can't I think of the right word here? The paint just wouldn't be as durable as as resin. That's pretty funny. Another thought I had as I'm losing my mind here is I could put that, if it came out nice and clear like this, I could put a coating of that clear wrap that we have, that I put on the R1 on the front of the point of the fairing, just as a protection. But I'd like to see if I can polish it really. Assuming I can remember who I am, I'd like to have that and try to polish the resin. Now it is important to let this dry, and I'm going to not get ants in my pants. I'll go have another cup of coffee while I'm waiting. This has to be dry to the touch. And so give it an extra 15-20 minutes to dry. No problem, we got plenty of other stuff to work on. And by the way, if all else failed today, here's what I could do. I could just pick any one of this part needs a little touch up, and I want to show that separately. I could pick some of these other parts that have not been buffed yet. This buffed out beautiful, by the way. That was yesterday's video. And there's another little thing, and I haven't figured it out yet. This part is not painted at all. And I was thinking I might not even have to paint it. It blends in there pretty good. But when I'm all done and I'll buff this out, this is the factory plastic finish. I didn't know that was going to match like that. But again, everything, that's the whole adventure of doing a project like this, is you never really know where it's going to wind up, and it changes by the day, and every day is different, and it adds a nice dimension to your life. And so all our material is now cut. We're ready, and we're just waiting for that PVA to dry. I think it's time for another cup of coffee. On a snowy day like this, you just can't drink too much coffee. That'll kill 5 or 10 minutes, and we'll be ready to go back to work. There's a couple little tips you can use. I use a flux brush, and these are usually very inexpensive. You can buy them off the internet. If you buy 100, they're about, I don't know, 15, 20 cents a piece. They're throwaway. I never clean them. It's just easier to get a new one. I always put a little bit of blue tape up at the end, because if this cuts through your glove, it's a mess, and the resin gets under the glove, and so cheap insurance. So here's a couple of things when you mix resin will really work in your favor. Always use a glass container, and do not stir it with a wooden stick, a painting stirring stick, for instance. What happens is some of the resins, and I'm not sure about this one, some of the resins, what'll happen is the wood absorbs some of the chemicals in the catalyst, and what happens is your resin will not cure properly. So that could be a real problem. Now, I'm trying to include on this video and on all my videos just tips, useful basic tips, not stuff that you know, it may be impossible to understand. This is simple stuff. Now this is, again, I think this is one of the nicer resins to use, because number one, there's no smell. Now the other part of this is when you think this is stirred, this is a metal stirrer. When you think this is totally stirred, stir it 2 full minutes more. Or you can make yourself a batch of resin that will not cure, or it'll take forever to cure. So it's cheap insurance. These are all little do's and don'ts that I think are really worth knowing. So what always works well on this is to have your material all cut, ready, have the resin mixed. Now we have about a 45-minute window. It's 65 degrees in here. I like to keep it cool. It gives me a little extra time to use the resin. And I want to make sure, of course, that the PVA is totally dry. That is step one, is to have that totally dry. That is really a critical part of this. Now, to spread this around, and again, this is, I'm trying to put all the basics that I've learned over many years of doing this, and we've made an awful lot of parts. We've sold a lot of these parts. The model airplane parts, especially the propellers. Oh my God, we sold a lot of them. The tune pipes. So we learned a lot along the way. The idea of all Windy videos is to pass on good information, useful information. Not stuff, there's information that people put out that, you know, if they work at Boeing, well, yeah, if you have an autoclave and you have well, your father owns a body shop, but, you know, most of my friends and most of the people watch the video are working, first of all, on a budget, and second of all, in like a shop like I have in a cellar at a house or something. They're not working at Boeing. So this is information geared at normal, average people that would like to be able to make parts like this for their motorcycle or their model airplane. Now, it's very important to get that first row down there. And then I don't want to disturb the weave, because I want to be able to use both sides of this. I want to have the choice of using both sides. I want to lay that down. Do not want to compromise it. You can see it comes right up through the weave. That's exactly what we want to happen. And there's a lot of ways to do a layup, a simple layup like this, but the bottom line is, if you get a piece of material you can use at the end of it, then it's successful. And if the material is not usable, I guess there's an easy way. It's like a football game. If you win, everything you did is right. If you lose, what can I say? Anyway, now I have enough resin on here, and I wanted to show this when you put a little bit extra, a lot extra. Once in a while you get a hair in there, we get that just for our own satisfaction. And after you do a few parts, you get good at estimating pretty much how much resin you need and how much of everything. Now we're going to have a total of 6 layers of carbon on this. And each one, I want to make sure each one is laminated to the one underneath it. So I want to see resin coming up through here. Now one of the things I could do on this, I could cut another piece of glass and put it on the other side. It would smooth it out maybe or whatever. But the other thing is I don't want to make this an overkill part. This is not a real structural part. It's just meant to look a little bit nicer than the part that comes with the motorcycle. And you have a little bit of satisfaction out of knowing you did it yourself. There's nothing really high-tech. If you were doing a piece that was 10 laminations, I think you could pretty much figure that out, what would have to happen. And if you guess wrong on a resin, you can just mix another batch. But I always try to avoid mixing way more resin than I need because, again, I just don't like to throw stuff away. I don't like to waste stuff. It's all a byproduct of when you grow up poor, you learn how to use things relatively efficiently. You learn how to put that tape in the bottom of your shoes so your feet don't hurt. Anyway, we will just put the rest of these on exactly like what I'm doing now until all 6 of them are laid down. Now the bottom line here is I want every laminate to be totally saturated, and that's without that the part will be certainly maybe usable, but it won't be anywhere as good as if you have this, that you've got every part and you can squeegee out. Of course, this is the whole thing. If we were making a model airplane part, we'd want to squeegee every drop of that resin out. A motorcycle part, not quite that important. In a perfect aircraft part that you were making, or more important even, a model airplane part, you would want the weight of the resin, when the part is finished, the weight that's in the resin and the weight that's in the carbon to be roughly 50-50. And then you would have that, what they strive for constantly is that ratio. Okay, so we know we've got that laminate. We just put the resin right back on there, do the same thing, and just keep adding the laminations as we need them. Now I know I've got this saturated, so I'm glad I found that PVA. Believe me, I haven't used that in probably 10, 12 years. We'll find out if it's good. If it isn't, we'll go to plan B. We always have plan B here. It's like if we go to the dentist and he says the teeth have to come out, go home and get a pair of pliers. And of course this just gets redundant, so I hope by now you're not falling asleep. Now at the end of this, I'm just going to look up whatever resin is over, just leave it lay on top. It'll just give me a coat of resin to sand through if I have to deal with any fish eyes or anything. And normally, if I were in a rush to do this, I could put this out in the sun if I lived in a sunny climate. Here I'm just going to put it up under a heating vent, let it dry overnight before we go on to the next step. And that always, it's the best of all worlds, is because what I'm trying to do with my personal life, I always like to have every day different. Yesterday I spent the whole day buffing. Today I spent the whole day doing carbon fiber stuff. And who knows what tomorrow, maybe we'll dig an oil well or something, I don't know. But what makes it possible is Karen always has an eclectic list of things that we need to do. And they always include a ride to Uncle Giuseppe's to get some extra holiday cheer, which I'm looking forward to, by the way. And looking forward most of all, and it won't be long, and my son from Denver will be here with his girlfriend Amy, and we're looking forward to probably be a gap in the videos because the time he's here, I can't get him to help me do this. I've already tried turning him into a carbon slave, but it didn't work. All right, won't have to get any fancier than that. I'll clean up the mess here and get that up by a heating vent to dry. And here we are right under a heating vent. Tomorrow when we come down to shop, we'll be ready to cut those parts out, finish them, put that, I'm hoping we're going to be able to get an epoxy finish on it. We'll see. So at the end of the job, always isopropyl alcohol cleans the majority of stuff up. I want to clean all the little things I've used. I don't try to save the flux brush. They're too inexpensive. And I like to have a fresh one. I don't want to have any little chunks of epoxy on it. So just having everything clean off the workbench again. This has been a really, really productive day. A really good day. And again, thanks to, I don't even know how to express it any other way. Leapfrogging. We always have some part of the project to work on that if we did pull it all apart in one shot, I don't know. You know, I know this way works for me. Now the part is sitting up by the heating vent and I don't have enough time. I thought I might have time to buff one or two of these parts out. And I'm not in any rush. And that's the whole thing that I've learned the hard way over many, many years of doing this is if you rush, you kind of take some of the enjoyment out of it and then you get done. And many times I've been done what I thought was a reasonable schedule. I'd be done a month early and I'd say, well, why didn't I just slow down and enjoy it more? Anyways, good information in this video. There's good information on all the videos. What am I bullshitting about? Here's another thing that's important. On our channel, there are a lot of other carbon fiber videos that may or may not have some information, especially the stuff repairing and fixing fairings for God knows what. And I had a great dinner with Glenn last night. He's doing great. And I'm looking forward to seeing him over the holidays again. All right, so if you enjoyed the video, great. That's why we make them. And if you liked the information, pass it on too. And thanks for watching and have a great holiday.